Strong cyclone now possible near western India as a cyclonic low is starting to take better shape. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for May 21st. So around the world we have a few areas of interest now to be monitoring, although only one of them so far is currently active. That's the one that's perched along the coast of western India, now creeping upwards towards Mumbai. So far 25 storms around the world in 2025. Well, let's take a look first at the Atlantic Ocean. Of course, the hurricane season hasn't started yet, but it's 11 small days until we actually do reach that threshold. But the basin is looking relatively quiet right now, just a few little areas of cloudiness, 4 particular areas there across the central Atlantic, and very little going on elsewhere. Well, in the eastern Pacific, there's a little low pressure system there off towards the left-hand side of the yellow circle there. The yellow circle itself is a 20% chance for something that might happen towards the end of the week into the weekend. In the meantime, there's a little system to watch there moving westwards, probably won't amount to anything. In the Western Pacific, it's a quiet basin right now, very little going on here at all. There is a disturbance, a small disturbance there, or a cluster of thunderstorms really, towards Palau, between Palau and the Mariana Islands. Apart from that, things are looking pretty quiet there. Well, in the North Indian Ocean, we've marked 2 systems now, not just this very high chance that we're now giving 80% on this area of interest off the coast of western India. Looks like it will become a tropical cyclone now. And the one on the right-hand side is for probably the weekend into early next week, 30% chance now for a potential system in the Bay of Bengal as well. Southwest Indian Ocean, I'm happy to tell you, is looking awfully quiet indeed. Very, very little activity going on, even in South Africa, where that river of rainfall has mainly moved through now. And in the Australian region, surprise, there's another area of interest that we've now designated for the later period, day 5 to 7. 10% chance, shouldn't happen, but you just never know with this area. It's another one there off the western Australian coast. So let's see how things are looking across the tropics and beyond. This is obviously the Indian Ocean, and that system that we're looking at certainly getting much more interesting as we watch it on satellite imagery, especially when we get to the close-ups in just a second. But there's a wide shot of it. Here it is right now, 80% chance that we're giving it, 35-mile-per-hour winds and a pressure near 1000 millibars, 16.9 north, 71.6 degrees east, and slowly sliding up the coast there of India and moving a little bit offshore now, which was also expected. Still some significant uncertainties about what this thing is going to do, but models are much more on board, which is why we're now giving it 80%. But along with that, certainly looking pretty good on these satellite image frames. You'd be forgiven for thinking that's a center of circulation there, although ASCAT passes earlier suggested that it's still got a way to go before it actually does that. So that might be a mid-level center possibly there, looking at that imagery, because it does look quite convincing. This is radar, what we can see of it, not that much is the answer, unfortunately, but possible signs of rotation on there by the looks of things. Well, here's the Atlantic view right now, and another significant severe weather day across the central United States, playing out in the form of all of those storms there, moving across the Mississippi River in the last couple of hours, at least as of the broadcast time. That's obviously a fluid situation, moving all across the US there. Obviously that carries over from yesterday's moderate risk, so more severe weather. Also, a little feature here at Puerto Rico, significant clouds and thunderstorms blowing up all over the island right now, has been the case for much of the afternoon, showing some localized heavy rainfall, showers, and possibly some flash flooding. So that was an interesting feature to look at on satellite and radar. And out in the open Atlantic, here's the view. Not too much going on here at this point in the tropical convergence zone, just getting warmed up a little bit down there towards the bottom right hand side of the screen. And this is the Eastern Pacific, where you can see a shell of a system on the left hand side there, south of Mexico. Just a few thunderstorms associated with that, really no kind of center of circulation or anything like that, or rotation even. And in the Western Pacific, not too much going on here either. There's a few areas of stormy weather though. Generally small scale stuff over the Philippines into the South China Sea, and also some storms near the Marshall Islands. Here's some local radar showing you the situation there as well. A few significant heavy thunder showers there right now. And this is the view off the east coast of China. Lots of severe, possibly severe, but very heavy rainfall moving off the coast of eastern China there, and that will be making its way towards Korea. And finally, another view of the North Indian Ocean, looking at with the Bay of Bengal at the centre, and obviously what we're expecting to be our new storm soon on the left-hand side. And here's the view from the Arabian Sea point of view. The rest of the basin obviously very, very quiet. Of course, the Arabian Peninsula chokes a lot of any kind of weather. And this is the Australian region, looking down there in the southern hemisphere. Not too much going on. Some thunderstorms there off Papua New Guinea and Indonesia, and out into the South Pacific now. A few little thunderstorms to the northern part of Vanuatu, and apart from that, not too much going on. A few storms moving across Italy as well in the Mediterranean Sea, and also in parts of Tunisia there, and also towards Libya. And this is some radar imagery showing some of that rainfall occurring over northern and central Italy as well. Those storms were over Spain, France and Spain last night. Well, this is the Atlantic sea surface temperatures, and they're continuing to take shape, as you can clearly see, licking up the east coast of Florida up towards the Outer Banks of North Carolina. A few 26 degrees Celsius isotherms. Eastern Pacific also looking pretty good, and just one or two little bits of 26 degrees now, just about reaching the Hawaiian Islands, and also creeping up the Gulf of California there in the coast, along the coast of Mexico. Western Pacific has been looking good for a while, but particularly good spots off the western coast of the Philippines, but also out east as well, really taking shape quite nicely. Japan looking a little bit chilly though still at this point. North Indian Ocean, obviously very warm waters here, and also in the Arabian Sea where that system is. It's easily 30 degrees Celsius, possibly more, so that's why we're a little bit concerned about the potential of this possible storm. Compared to average, it's a little bit of a departure from the average in the Bay of Bengal, possibly 3 degrees above. In the Western Pacific, a few places, maybe even more than that, off the east coast of China, where those storms are taking advantage of that. And in the Eastern Pacific, it's hot and cold there, blue right next to some orange colours in different parts of the Eastern Pacific. And in the Atlantic, a significant warm spot now compared to normal along the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. And this is the Oceanic heat content view. Not much has changed since our last bulletin, but a few little spots there of orange in the Eastern Pacific. Western Pacific, quite a bit more mass of oranges and reds. Oceanic heat content certainly helps smaller storms as well as storms that are rapidly intensifying, which you may want to bear in mind. In the Atlantic, it's also creeping up there as well to moderate amounts in most parts of the Caribbean Sea, and also through into the loop current of the Gulf of Mexico as well, getting some decent colouring now. Well, let's check the GFS computer model for the next 5 days. First of all, looking at our Arabian Sea system, eventually becoming a tropical storm, quite slowly actually on that GFS run, but ballooning in size and intensity as we go along there. 953 millibars is the peak pressure on this, and yet it doesn't quite reach major hurricane equivalent status there, otherwise you'd be seeing red on the graphic, which I'm a little bit possibly surprised at. It's quite close to that status there as it's moving off the coast of Gujarat. Not a clear landfall on that GFS run. It starts to turn towards the west. Other models also all forming the system now. Let's start with that, but exactly where it ends up is another big question. Steering currents are probably weak, certainly will be later on in the storm's life, and GFS possibly hinting that it'll turn back on itself there south of Iran and westernmost Pakistan. Well, rainfall expectations there in the next 7 days, right up there as well along the coast of India, possibly localized amounts of 400 millimeters, and for Gujarat a little bit less than that, around 150 millimeters, your maximums at the moment, bearing in mind that's not calling for a direct landfall. Well, in the medium range, day 5 to 10, we eventually find this Eastern Pacific system. Wow, it's quite big actually. There it is, getting to hurricane status quite briefly, and then it starts to shrivel up a little bit as it moves closer towards the coast of Mexico, Guerrero, that kind of region. No, it's beyond there actually, through Manzanillo and getting up towards the northwest. Still trying to get back on track with my geography there. And in the Western Pacific, a potential system in the medium range as well near the end of the month, where you can see a small system. There it is, trying to get the tropical storm status quite brief. Looks like it does manage that off the coast of China, and then eventually gets a little bit stuck as it gets into the coast to the west of Taiwan on the Chinese mainland. Quite quick and brief, that storm, and somewhat weak, but getting towards high in tropical storm status by the looks of things there. And what happens to our cyclone in the Arabian Sea? Well, if this happens, the track could be much different, but there it is, stalling around the area actually, in Pakistan by the looks of things. So an interesting place for it to stall, unusual, and gradually weakens, certainly not as strong by the time it does finally make landfall. But then that other system on the right hand side, that's a second tropical cyclone there. We're giving that 30% chance of forming there, a very broad monsoonal type that you see at this time of year in the Bay of Bengal. Scan the barcode and that will take you through to the Forster Teen merch store, where you can take a look at all of our items, as well as our full season and individual storm animations. You can check out our outlets, there we go, on this link as well. And in the fantasy range, which is certainly, well, there's not actually much to show you, it's just this, I think, the Eastern Pacific system that's moving off towards the west-northwest and then sinks without a trace. Off it goes into the unknown of the Eastern Pacific Ocean. Of course, the real reason why it dies off there so quickly is those sea surface temperatures, which still aren't quite up to temperature yet, further out to sea. Still got a little bit of work to do, not helped by them being below average to start off with. So we'll be seeing relatively short tracks for storms that take that track at the moment. Well, what happened on this day? It was May 21st, 1906, when we were looking at a rather powerful typhoon. It already reached Category 4 status before slamming the Philippines, and it was reaching a secondary peak as a Category 2, just as it was reaching the coast of China. Probably a significant ace maker by the looks of that one. It didn't move very quickly over its life. It eventually made landfall, skirted through the coast of China, still emerged off the coast as a typhoon, just clipped the northern coast of Taiwan, and then off towards Okinawa as a tropical storm. So 93A is the designation for K5 that we gave in the Arabian Sea. In the Atlantic, the first name on the list this year will be Andrea. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Alvin, and in the Central Pacific, it will be Iona. Of course, this invest in the Arabian Sea causing us to be code yellow right now, which is quite substantial already. Wutip is next in the Western Pacific, and in the North Indian Ocean, that name, if it does happen, not saying when just yet, but if it happens, it will be Shakti. And in the Southern Hemisphere, the next name in the Australian region is Fina, Southwest Indian Ocean, Lyra, and South Pacific, Ermil. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. We'll be back again tomorrow night.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.